Good evening, good evening, good evening. This is the day the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Another day's journey. So glad about it and so grateful for you coming and being a part of this conversation with Alyn Andrea. I want to thank you for continuing to be supportive of this new platform, an opportunity for us to dig a little deeper. I got out of the basement. But what I really wanted to do after a conversation with teenagers last summer, they really wanted to challenge me to step into the 21st century. But also, I think it's important for us to be able to talk about what's going on in Philadelphia, look at it through our lens, through the lens of the church, and to continue to look for ways that we bring the community together. It has been said, that Philadelphia is a big little town. And when you live here for a while, you come to realize that while this is the sixth largest city in the country, we are such a group of neighborhoods that Philadelphia gets real small real quick when you understand how this works. And so I'm grateful. I love me some Philadelphia. And that's why also we're here with Andrea, who loves this city as well, to help us process what's going on and how can we love on each other, love on the city. How can we lift the name of Christ in a culturally relevant way, but also how can we engage you and hear from you, and so that we can be the best version of Philadelphia that is possible. So thank you so much for being here today. And I'm going to turn this over to Andrea because she's going to help us know who we have and what we have to talk about today.
Good evening. I am so excited. Jarreau W. Thomas is a dedicated public safety professional with over 21 years of exemplary service in the Philadelphia Police Department. Inspector Thomas is currently serving as the Inspector of Community Relations for the Philadelphia Police Department and utilizes his background in communications and criminal justice to bridge gaps and promote understanding with the community. It is in that vein we're going to have a conversation today. It is our pleasure, Pastor Waller and my pleasure, to have a conversation with someone from the police department. If you understand how the police department works, this is not an easy thing to accomplish, right? And so we're trying to bridge the gap between the community, the police department, this church, and the community of Philadelphia at large. So Pastor Waller, I'm going to let you start, and then I'm going to have at it.
All right. So she just described who you are and what you do. Jarreau, we're so grateful that you're here.
Yes.
But what does that mean? What do you do? I mean, you're a police officer, but you're connecting community. Help us understand what it is you do with the Philadelphia Police Department.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, I'm a man of faith. That faith advises me in what I do professionally. And so my role in the Philadelphia Police Department is I am the Inspector of Community Relations. And so what does that mean? Because community relations means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And so I have the privilege of having under me a lot of great people who work on behalf of building bridges within the community. And so when we unpack what that really looks like, it looks like our police athletic league. I oversee that. It looks like our police explorers. We also conduct engagements within schools and within communities, just trying to find ways in where we can connect with those people, the people of the community, in order to allow them to see us as human beings, see beyond the badge, to see beyond the uniform.
Wow. Now, you just said something. I'm going to take a turn up at this corner because you talked about the police explorers.
Yes.
I am a frustrated law enforcement person. If I were not a preacher, I promise you I wanted to be a police officer. I served in the military. I honor all of you who wear the uniform. And I would do it. In fact, one of the things I thought about doing was going to the academy just to do it, just to go through it, and not get the job. But anyhow, explorers,
yes.
That's with the young people, right?
Yes.
And is it possible that a church could have its own chapter of the police explorers? Is that a type of thing that could happen? I know they exist and they're around, but Could we like have the Enon Explorers, a chapter where we get young people who are interested in police? I'm just putting you on the spot.
Yeah.
Listen, I appreciate the question. And just to let you know, so right now the police explorers are being rolled back out to each of our 20 patrol districts.
Got you.
Right?
Okay.
And so I believe that there is some opportunity for training, for enrichment. There is some opportunity there, just to have that engagement between the Enon community and our police explorers, and potentially maybe have some of your young people, become police explorers.
Yeah.
So there is something there.
Got you. Thank you for that. But I know you're going to dig in because I'm doing this is the good cop, bad cop thing here that's going on.
Yes.
And so what are the challenges for you in building relationships with the community? What are some of the main challenges, and help us understand how we can help?
So one of the main challenges revolves around communication. Philadelphia is one of those towns where you can say what you want, but people watch what you do. And unfortunately, historically, the police department has had a interesting history with the citizenry, right? You couple that with the national incidences of injustice, of violence inflicted upon the community at the hands of the police, and it creates a situation where you have a disconnect in communication and you have a disconnect in motives. And this is the environment that we find ourselves operating in. We're operating in an environment where trust is being tested, because when you turn on the television and you see, maybe an act of misconduct perpetrated by the police, you then begin to question, like, how can I trust the people who are sworn to protect me? And that presents a challenge for us, because it's incumbent on us to then create those spaces, which is part of what I do. Part of my job is to create spaces and to create opportunity for us to have conversations with members of the community to bridge the gaps of communication in order that we can have authentic relationship.
Okay. Thank you for that. I'm turning it over to you.
So listen.
Oh, no.
No, it's all good. It's all good. I'm going to confess that I always wanted to be a police officer too, but I wanted to be a part of SWAT.
That's
That's my thing. Yes, I literally wanted to knock down doors and come in with the special equipment and ride in the Big Betty and all the things.
Makes sense and explains a lot.
I said the Big Betty.
The Big Betty.
The Big Betty.
I'm telling on myself, right? But so you spoke to something that resonates with me in particular, because I was trained in Montgomery County through the Department of Justice, telling on myself again, to work with young people and police officers, right? Had gone through that training. And I have seen some miraculous things happen when that happens. I have seen young people walk into the room, not liking police officers, making all the assumptions that they hear when we ask them, well, did this happen in your family? A few had some things happen in their families, but the great majority of them would say, it's what I see on Instagram or TikTok, and I believe that police officers are this and that. And then when the officers then share their stories about how they grew up and that it's so similar to the way these young people have in their own communities, that you're a part of that community with them, I see a shift in that they say, I've watched this happen, Inspector Thomas, over and again. Mm-hmm. Can I text you when something's going wrong in my school? When I'm walking down the street, can I talk to you? The question that I have for you as a community relations officer in the Philadelphia Police Department, this is absolutely necessary. How do we do more of that?
So that is a great question. And so before I even answer that question, I can't express enough how important it is for us to build relationships with our young people. Our young people are our next community, our next, generation of leaders. The people who are going to be running the city, the state, the individuals that are going to be running our industries. And having a relationship with the police officers at a very young age is part of it. And so when we think about, connecting with our young people, the question that's posed to us is, what is the best manner upon which police can connect with young people? Mm-hmm. And it's not an easy question. It's not an easy thing to really answer because of the trauma that they have seen within their own communities. They look at the crime. Do the police really care about this? They look at some of the injustices that may be perpetrated on behalf of the police, and they say, so now we're dealing with the crime, but now we also have to deal with some of the things that the police are doing. And so there is that trust again. But then it becomes like, okay, they want to have a relationship with us. And so it becomes incumbent on us to figure that out. And so one of the ways that we did that was through our procedurally just youth engagement. You know all about that.
I do.
Because you were involved in that.
I was.
And I just wanted to let you know here publicly that I appreciate your efforts. I appreciate your conversation and dialogue that you facilitated during those engagements, because it was an eye-opener for myself in addition to the officers. But that is an example of how we connect. Like, I always talk about humanizing the badge. We are more than police officers. Before I decided to become a police officer, I was just a black man from this very community, trying to find my way in life. I didn't grow up wanting to be a police officer. As a matter of fact, I had no opinion about police officers at all. I didn't have any good interactions with police, but I didn't have any bad interactions. The police were just an entity that existed, and I knew that they were necessary for some elements of society in order for us to have some order. So for me growing up in Mount Airy, it wasn't, I didn't see the necessary need to connect. However, when I go into North Philly, which is where I started, the 39th district, when I go into certain areas in South Philly or West Philly, the disconnect is clear. Conversations. Just sitting down, creating a space to have conversations with young people, to show them, like, listen, yeah, I wear this badge. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I do many other things. I'm a Sigma on top of that.
There we go.
That's
it.
And so
Lord have
when
mercy.
you talk about commitment, that commitment is just not when I clock in.
Right.
The community and the young people need to see you when you're not on the clock. When it's not convenient for you to show up, they need to see that. And that's how you begin to build those bridges, and people begin to see you as you authentically are.
So can I ask about PAL?
Yes.
I didn't grow up going to a PAL. I grew up where my father pastored a very progressive church. So my after school thing was both my school and my church. But I would hear about PAL. Here in Philadelphia, I know about the PAL that's around Strawberry Mansion.
Yes.
What is PAL? Does it cost for a child to show up and get involved? What can they get from it? How do you engage that?
So PAL is very dear to my heart. I used to be the commanding officer of the Police Athletic League when I was a captain. I was promoted, and by the grace of God, I now oversee PAL.
Okay.
So PAL is a nonprofit public entity partnership. A lot of people believe when they hear Police Athletic League that PAL is, 100% police. The reality of it is it's a nonprofit that supports the police department in offering services to the young people in each of these communities, right?
Okay.
And so PAL is for ages 6 to 18.
Okay.
Offer a variety of programming. We have golf, we have tennis. We're trying to expose some of our young people to things that they may not have necessarily been exposed to. We know that there's certain sports that are just in our communities. Football, baseball's dying out, and basketball. However, a lot of young people in the inner city are not exposed to tennis. They're not exposed to golf. They're not exposed to some of these, even pickleball. I heard is people getting scholarships in this.
Yeah.
And so so PAL fills that space. And so there are 15 PAL centers throughout the city.
Okay.
However, there are 3 additional school-based sites that we have in partnership with the School District of Philadelphia. Typically, they're open from around right after school hours to about 9 o'clock. And the young people, they come in, they have an opportunity to develop a relationship with a Philadelphia police officer. They develop that relationship to the extent where some of them even look at these police officers as if they're their own family. And so, as I mentioned before, it's dear to my heart because I've seen personally the impact that PAL has had in the lives of our youth.
So on any given, is it is the attendance and participation on par with what you want to see? Do you find that young people are actually coming or not coming?
Yes.
How is it? Is it working?
It is working. So we have thousands of kids who are registered PAL kids who come into our centers. However, what's different today is that we are now operating in a space where there are more nonprofit entities offering out-of-school time services in Philadelphia than ever before. And so we are just one of the many out-of-school time providers throughout the city of Philadelphia. But even with that, you have to keep in mind that PAL is, I believe, was 76 years old. PAL started as a police sergeant, saw some young people in the community. He took those young people to a baseball field. He just started playing baseball with them. That simple act of just being aware that something else was needed developed into what you see today as the Police Athletic League 76 years later.
Wow.
Have you ever been in the PAL Center, Pastor Waller?
I was in the PAL Center at Strawberry Mansion.
Yes.
Earlier this year. And quite frankly, that was my first time.
Wow.
I remember hearing about some guys going to PAL to box. That's my context.
Yes.
But no, I had not prior to that. And so I was at the one in Strawberry Mansion for another program, but it was a great facility. The young man that was over that facility seemed to be engaging. My challenge, and I'm wondering where the miss is, because what you said is there are 15 PALs. I'm assuming that what you were saying, yes, people are coming, but there are a lot of other options for them. So
Yes.
then what I heard you say is that there are all these options for kids to do things after school. But then I also hear that the kids don't have enough rec centers.
Come on.
The kids don't have enough opportunities. So I'm wondering where the miss is. Is what you just said, I don't think you're not telling the truth, but the way you presented it, it's like there are more opportunities for kids after school than ever before. And what I'm hearing as a pastor in any given day is we got to get these rec centers open. We got to get these opportunities because all these kids are just hanging out and they don't have any place to go. Where's the miss, or what is there a miss? Are both things true? Are they not wanting what PAL or these rec centers are offering? What's the issue?
So one of the things that I see is that we have to evolve with the times. There was a point in time where baseball was enough. And then recently, this recently is 2 years ago, I'll give you an example. Our 24th District PAL Center, we opened a gaming center. Now, had you said
I was there.
Gaming 10 years ago, we'd have been like, we're not training our kids for that.
Right.
However, what that shows us, now that idea was from the kids. It was from the youth. And so for one, we have to do a better job of listening to our youth, right? And so when you don't listen to them, you find that they don't want to be involved with you, right? Like, I told you I wanted this program. You didn't implement the program. I'm going to go back to whatever I was doing before. And so part of that is our responsibility to be receptive to listening to the young people, even though it may be something that may be contrary to what we believe. Because if you're like me, my son was one of my oldest. I wanted to be a gamer and an influencer, and it was hard for me to accept.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm not sure about that. But the reality of it is they look on social media and they see people making millions of dollars from this. And so obviously it is a career choice. Is it an ideal career choice, especially from a parent's perspective? You need to figure something else out and use that as the backup plan. However, I do understand that, and so a part of this is just us evolving to fill those gaps. Because when you don't evolve with what the kids want, that is how a gap is created.
Absolutely.
That's how the gap is created. And then we ask ourselves, like, well, why don't the kids want anything to do with us? And it's not that they don't want anything to do with you. You have to do something that is interesting to them and entices them to come into your doors. And if you don't do that, you can expect them to be out in the streets or wherever else they were.
Yeah. No, that's real.
As we're having a conversation, we're all, combined, we're probably well over 100 years old, right? In our ages. I'm not telling you age.
Amen.
Is it possible that we can hear the children without forming our own opinions? Think about when we were growing up and we wanted to, bebop or whatever it is that was the thing at the time. And our parents said it was the devil. It was of the devil and all the things that we've heard as we were growing up. Gaming is a thing now that you can make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year as a job. Gaming, right? Creating these games and going to Japan and going off to school there. And our children have been telling us this for a while. But to your point, we're like, well, how are you going to make money doing that, right?
Yeah.
And so I love that you all have done that in the PAL Center. I saw it happen, and I've walked into PAL Centers, Pastor Waller, dozens of them just in there playing, hugging on the officers. There was a great space for it. I think the disconnect is that as a community, we don't sometimes see the value in some of the things, right? And that as parents who are overworked and are thinking that I don't have time to get them to this and I don't have time to get them that, there are PAL buses, there are PAL vans, they go and pick up the children. There's so much going on there, which is why I'm grateful that we're having this conversation with you today, because I think we will open the space. Enon is a large organization filled with people who are really enjoying these conversations, right? And every Sunday, somebody stopped me and said, oh my God, I'm learning something new from you and Pastor Waller. What we'd love to do is to have them look at the police department in a way, instead of seeing them as just a place to call when there's an issue, or somebody's robbing my car or whatever there is, as a community partner that absolutely is valued. I think it will go a long way, not just to healing the community, but also for the police officers themselves, who have to see this stuff day in and day out that's not great, right? So here's my question for you. We see just this past, few days ago, we saw some violence in Center City with 14-year-olds, and what can we as a community do to help the police department when these incidents happen in a safe and concise way, if that's possible?
No, that's a great question. And I think that the answer to this on some level is a little bit simpler than what we try to make it sometimes. And the simple answer to this is to get involved in the life of a young person. Each and every one of us, we have young people on our block. We have young people who may call you Unc. We have young people who may call you, some people, Godfather, whatever it may be. Each and every one of those young people is an opportunity to get involved. What that involvement looks like, it can be anything. Get up in the morning, like, you know what, let's go to the movies today. Let me go buy you your first suit. Let me teach you how to drive. It's not some complicated mathematical equation. Is just stop sitting on the sideline. We need men to get involved. We need families to come back together. And all the time, families are not blood. And so whatever the situation is, that community right there can help prevent some of the things that we see going on in our communities today from a police perspective.
Pastor Waller, there is forgive me, Inspector Thomas, there's a program in the police department that adults can join to become almost like a volunteer police officer. Am I making this make sense? I stopped a bank robbery earlier this year. I'll tell you about that another time.
Oh, you out here fighting crime? You just doing all kind of stuff.
I'll tell you about that another time. And then I was invited to be a part of a program down at your headquarters where I learned how the police department work, et cetera, et cetera. I couldn't finish it, unfortunately, because I had some issues in my family. But what is there for adults who never became police officers? Am I making sense, Pastor Waller? That truly wants to become involved in a different level that can help them to be safer and help the communities to be safer where they live.
So the first thing is that we have our civilian police academy.
That must be it. That must be it.
Yes.
Yep.
You can. You have an opportunity to go to training at the police academy with police academy instructors who would then teach you about the police department, and teach you about some basic tenets of policing. You have an opportunity to see what we do from a different perspective. In addition to that, there are some things that we are working on behind the scenes in regards to developing people in the community who may be interested in law enforcement, but are kind of like in between the process. I'm not going to speak too prematurely on that. I don't want my boss to kill me. However, for right now, that civilian police academy is critical. In addition to that, we have what we call our police district advisory councils, which you can be involved in. Every district has one.
Okay.
You can walk into the police district, talk to the community relations officer. That community relations officer can then explain to you about the program. But since I'm here, I'll explain to you about our police district advisory councils. And so it's important that we hear from our community, not when it's a complaint, not when someone's dead, not when someone's house is broken into. We have to pride ourselves and begin to look at things from a culture of being proactive and not reactive. And fortunately for us, the Police District Advisory Council has been around for some time. However, when you think about the role that they play in the districts, they are our eyes and ears. If a problem comes through our Police District Advisory Council, it is incumbent on us and is our responsibility to make sure that we're responsive to that. However, when I say responsive, some of these things are preemptive. It could be a community member saying, hey, there's an argument going on my block. I think it's going to escalate. Can you guys get involved in some conflict resolution? Those are the type of things that come in through our Police District Advisory Councils. They also work hand in hand with our community relations teams within the districts. They do community events with the police department. It's nothing but your time. That's what it costs you. Your investment is your time.
Thank you for that. I did know about the civilian piece. In fact, I had signed up. I just could not commit. I think it's like 12 weeks, and it's every Monday night or every Wednesday. And I really wanted to do it.
All right, now you got to come on through.
Yeah, I do. I promise you I want to. My question for the person who's listening that says, I have a complaint. I need someone to hear me about what happened. Both my complaint with the police, but also I'm a concerned citizen in my community, and pretty much what she asked, but what does that really look like? Yeah. I want to let you know what's going on around here, but I don't want them to know.
That I know.
Where do they go? Who do they go to? What does that look like?
Yeah, so one of the things that we have implemented is our tip line, 215-686-TIPS. You are able to leave anonymous tips about whatever is going on in your neighborhood, your community, and we can utilize some of that information in order to make your community safer. In addition to that, the police districts hold monthly town halls and monthly PSA meetings.
Really?
Yep. PSA meeting is, PSA, first of all, stands for Police Service Area. Every police district has 3 or 4 police service areas, which is essentially a geographical subdivision of a district. And services are supposed to be tailored to the specific environment of that particular district or that PSA. And so through these meetings, you have an opportunity to meet firsthand the leaders of those PSAs, who are lieutenants and sergeants. These lieutenants and sergeants have the ear of the captain, who can then take action on matters that come to his attention. However, through this process, none of this information has to be, I guess, you have to identify yourself. You can remain anonymous throughout the whole process, and we will utilize that information to make your community safer.
It's a great conversation, isn't it?
It is. It's interesting. We had an experience out here, and I want to name this because it's the type of stuff. It ultimately resolved itself, but our Boy Scouts were doing the Christmas present pickup. It's a thing where Boy Scouts encourage people to put items that they would like to give to Scouts to give away on their porch. And then the Boy Scouts go to the porch, take the presents off, take them back, bring them here, then they give them away. So it's a program. Well, our Boy Scouts were going around the community getting the presents off the porch. And one of the good police officers, all he saw was young boys taking things off of porches. And so what ended up happening, now they were clearly going back to the car,
Yeah.
but what ended up happening is that car with the scoutmaster, with these boys, with their scout uniforms, then gets pulled over. And that was regrettable because it seemed that they didn't, the police officer really didn't read it correctly. Now, I understand you see these kids going off of these porches, but I think the scoutmaster kind of could have been a context clue. But but after that, I'm grateful that we did complain.
Yes.
We then did get the captain to come and talk with us and talk with scouts,
Awesome.
and it changed a very, very regrettable circumstance and situation into a growth opportunity. And so I'm grateful, at least in this area.
Yes.
We have had some really good relationships with 14th and 35th.
Yes.
And so, again, we honor the police, but because of that, we want to be critical when we have to be.
Yes.
So then, where does that go? When someone has had a run-in, we've always said, don't try to settle it with a police officer in that moment.
Yes.
You know, we tell young boys all the time, don't argue, ride with it. Okay, so it happened, it's over. What's the right thing to do? What is the right thing for the young boy who got pulled over, who feels that he was disrespected, or the older African-American man who was talked to in a way that is not becoming? So we sat on it. We did what we were supposed to do. It's tomorrow. Where do you go? Where does a person go to say, hey, this happened to me with the police, and I would like some justice? What does that look like?
No, that's a very good question. And so there's a lot of different avenues, right? And so we'll look at a few of them.
Okay.
The first could be informal, right? You know, I'm of the mind that not everything needs to be a formal complaint. However, it does need to be brought to somebody's attention.
Yeah.
And so maybe the first option could be, hey, you know, I want to have a meeting with that police officer. I want to have a meeting with the supervisors of the district so that they understand what's going on and what could potentially be happening with other officers as well. And through that informal conversation, it could come a remarkable breakthrough through which it becomes a training opportunity for the police officers. It also becomes a learning opportunity, you know, for the citizens who are involved. However, there are some incidences where it needs to be a formal complaint. Let me just back up a little bit. Every incident that occurs with police that is not a positive incident, I believe that there is an opportunity for communication and for dialogue, for correction, for understanding.
Yeah.
And so what that looks like from a formal perspective is you can file a formal complaint. You can go into any police district. You can go into our Internal Affairs Bureau, which is in Northeast Philadelphia, and you can request to file a formal complaint. Through that complaint, a formal investigation will be initiated, and the officer will be interviewed. The involved party will be interviewed as well, and it will be thoroughly investigated. However, I just think that when we talk about, you know, I always like to tie things back into community and how do circumstances like this help make us better in serving the people that we have taken an oath to serve. And so, because the reality of it is, the complaint is the complaint. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to occur again. And so, the reason that I believe communication and dialogue has to be a part of this is because when you actually have an opportunity to hear the heart of the person that you wronged, when you get an opportunity to sit in a room with that person's family and actually hear how it affected that individual, that is the stuff that changed hearts and minds of police officers. Now, don't get me wrong, discipline does too.
Yeah, right.
Discipline does too.
Right.
You know, nobody likes to lose pay, et cetera, et cetera. However, for me, my most impactful moments on this job have been sitting in someone's kitchen who's been a victim, sitting, you know, in the playground with someone's young folk, you know, that said they're being bullied, or saying that they had a negative impact with the police last week. And so for me, that has been a game changer.
Thank you for that. Anything else you want to?
I think this has been a great conversation. I think
Absolutely.
we've asked all the things. I want to personally thank you for sitting in this hot seat with us.
Absolutely.
Because oftentimes, particularly in our communities, we don't always have the best relationships. I'm glad you were the bad guy today. Right?
Yeah.
And you asked the question. So, I appreciate everything that you've done, that you will continue to do. I believe we've learned a little bit more about how we can interact with police officers in the Philadelphia Police Department and beyond, how we, navigate what happens within our communities, and how we too can get involved. And so I'm grateful. I'm really grateful that you're here having a conversation with us.
Thank you for that. And thank you, Brother Jarreau, for being here and serving this city and serving it with distinction. And thank you all for listening and being a part of this conversation. I'm excited because Christmas is coming up. Listen, Christmas Eve, there's no other place you want to be other than the Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church at 5 p.m. And it's another what I like to call Erica Waller joint. Again, every year, during Resurrection Sunday or Christmas, we have, my language is pageant. And the reason I use pageant is because it's not always a play, could be a musical, but there's something, and our director of arts, Erica Waller, this is the first time that it's going to be a totally youth-oriented musical. There are about 20 kids that are in this play. They're singing, they're dancing, they're acting, they're telling the Christmas story. And it's going to happen on the stage. When you get to church tomorrow morning, yes, we got to have a stage because it was put up on this past Thursday. So I'm going to be preaching from a stage. So I am looking forward to seeing you in church. But that is because on Tuesday evening, we're going to have another play. It's a musical. And so I'm really excited about it, and I want to encourage you to come out and be a part of that. Jesus Christ is the reason for the season, and we want to begin all of this celebration in church, celebrating Emmanuel, God with us. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being a part of this conversation. I'm going to ask God's blessings as we get ready for tomorrow morning. God, I bless you and thank you. Thank you for Brother Thomas, and thank you for how you use him, Inspector Thomas, how you're using him in this community with the police and building bridges between the police and the community. We thank you, God, for informing us of all of the wonderful things that do take place under his watch. But we also pray, God, for those ouch points in our community as it relates to relationships and experiences with law enforcement. Lord, we pray that you would help us to grow, help us to mature, and help us, Lord, to embrace accountability. Help us, Lord, to embrace building community, that in this all you would get glory and it would be for our good. I pray for tomorrow morning that as men and women stand in pulpits across this city, that the gospel would go forth with power. And I pray for this entire city as we go into this time of Advent, that you would bless us and help us to remember that Jesus truly is the reason for the season. We pray these and all of the blessings in the matchless, marvelous, and majestic name of Jesus the Christ. And for his sake we do pray. Let us all say, amen. Amen. God bless you. God keep you is my prayer.